Good afternoon, everybody. I will call to order this meeting of the Ad Hoc Bylaws Committee of the Del Mar College District Board of Regents. Let me check for a quorum. Regent Hutchinson.
I'm here.
Dr. Turner.
Here.
And I'm Libby Averett, and I am also present. All of us are here. Please join me in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. The pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Will you all please join me in reading the Del Mar College Vision Statement? Del Mar College will be the premier choice for life-changing educational opportunities provided by a responsive, innovative faculty and staff who empower students to improve local and global communities. Del Mar College is streaming live audio and video from the official Ad Hoc Bylaws Committee meeting on the college's website in real time, with the exception of portions of the meeting considered closed session by statute. We do allow public comments, and I've been notified that we do not have any public comments for today's meeting. Our first item of business is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting on July 14th. I'm assuming everybody has had a chance to review those minutes. If so, is there a motion to accept them?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. On with our business. We have been given the latest draft of the bylaws that we've been discussing, and that's the draft that I'd like to work off today, so we can go through it from the beginning and just kind of make our comments about anything that we may need to change or anything that we may need to discuss at this point. And so I'm trusting all of the members have a copy of the most recent.
I have that copy in front of me.
Okay.
I got the new. Can you bail me out here?
Sure,
All
sure.
right, good. Somewhere between Colorado and here.
Yeah. Yes, yes, that's okay. That's okay. Okay, and we're just going to start at the beginning here and open it up for any comments that any committee members have. Let's start with page 1. There's 15 pages where we've cleaned up the language in terms of the title for the president and CEO. Thank you, Mr. Rivera and Ms. McDonald, for taking care of that. Anything else on the first page?
First paragraph, I have noticed that we were going to scratch the word however, and you'll start with the Board of Regents acknowledges the profound importance of, is that correct? Because that went back a couple
Yes.
meetings.
Thank you.
So I went through both drafts and kind of narrowed it down.
Great, thank you.
And the only thing that I have was, I'm not sure if we wanted to put this in or if we discussed, I can't remember, but we discussed that attending 50% of the meetings, and I wasn't sure if that was something that we needed to add in here under responsibilities and duties, because I did not know that, so other people may not know that is a expectation. So I know we have in here that they will try to attend all regular meetings, but there is a number. And we talked about excused and unexcused and so forth, but I didn't know if we needed to put it under responsibilities or under duties. So, and I didn't know maybe it fit under 2A. So it's just a question mark if that needed to be in there, if you think it was necessary or not. I just knew I didn't know I had to do that.
Good point.
So I don't
Where'd you see
know.
it put it though? I missed that.
Well, I wasn't sure if we just added a 9. Shall attend and participate in at least 50% of regular scheduled board meetings, or add it to 2A, attend and participate in 50% of regular scheduled. So I didn't know. I think it fit in either one. So it's really kind of up to you all. But I just remember, again, looking at both sets.
That's good. Thank you for remembering that.
And I think it's more appropriate under the duties and responsibilities and ethics. It's just a do your job.
I'm flexible on where it goes, wherever you think is best, as long as it's in there.
Probably
That's
under section 1, what I'll do is I'll just track the language from the education group.
great. Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Turner. Anything else on page 1? What about page 2?
I just had one.
That's fine.
Are you sure?
Yes, please.
All right. And I didn't have a notes when we went over this last couple times. And under B, I just noticed that other colleges had it, where it says the board possesses and exercises its authority and duties as a collective body, and other colleges have an and functions only when it is convened in meetings. So I didn't know if we wanted to match other colleges or if you just like it the way it is. But I was just throwing it out there because a couple of them had that language. I don't know if it's necessary or limiting or.
Would you repeat that? What the
Sure. It was, it goes, the board possesses and exercises its authority and duties as a collective body and functions only when it is convened in meetings, unless specified or specifically authorized by prior action of the board. No individual member may speak, obligate, or exercise authority in the name of the board. So I was just matching the other colleges that we reviewed. So that's the reason why I threw it out there. I don't know if it was necessary or if it changes its meaning or just kind of sinks it in. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any other time that we would act outside of a meeting. So I think it's a true statement, whether it adds something in addition to. Maybe we shorten a little bit just by saying exercise authority as a collective body in a meeting.
No, that's right. Collective body when it is convened in meetings or something like that. I don't know, I mean, I got that specifically from San Jacinto. And I believe one of the other ones had it too because I had it mentioned and marked. So I was just copying what they had.
I don't feel strongly one way or the other, so I'm certainly comfortable with it added. That small phrase would be fine.
Okay.
Thank you. What else on page 2?
I didn't have. I just thought I and J was great.
Mhm.
Thank you so
Yes.
much for putting that in there.
Yes, thank you. Okay, page 3. Before I ask for additional comments, the one thing that I did think of here that I mentioned to Mr. Rivera earlier is whether we had specifically taken our existing code of ethics that we sign and compared it to this to make sure that we're including everything. And I think there are a few things that we've overlooked.
I've got a copy to do.
From our current ones?
Yes, so in our current bylaws, we have a statement of conduct and ethics, but we also, you may remember, we sign a separate 11-part code of ethics. And what we discussed at our last meeting was doing away with this signed statement.
Yes.
Since we have it in our bylaws, but substituting a shorter, concise commitment to follow our code of
That
ethics.
adopts this,
Yes, that
yes.
adopts
I
this,
like
so we're
that.
not duplicating. Doing that, though, I just want to make sure that we go through all of these things, because I don't think it was our intention to not include these principles. We just wanted to consolidate them. So there is some language, and I'm not, Mr. Rivera, I'm not even suggesting that you need to track the language specifically that's in in this existing commitment, but just make sure that we have all of these principles. Keep all deliberations in closed session confidential. Number 8.
And we would put that under meetings, correct? Or do you want it up here under code of ethics?
No, I think it should go under the
here
code
where
of
it's very
ethics.
clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even the first one says, devote time, thought, and study to my duties as a board member. We talk about attending and participating actively, but we don't specifically talk about the time, thought, and study, which
Yeah, 'cause
thought was a nice phrase.
Okay.
The phrase in number 3 about abiding by and upholding the final majority decision of the board, I think that's an important concept that I know we've discussed quite a bit previously that we don't want to lose. So, Mr. Rivera, if you'll just review that, please, and incorporate
Got it?
all of those things, that would be great.
Anything else, Regent Turner, Regent Hutchison?
on page 3 or
Mhm.
just,
Just on
Just-
from this form, is Regent A?
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
is there anything
Oh.
else?
Could have been left out.
yeah, if
Those are
there's,
good, those,
yeah, I think.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I did put question marks next to number 1, 3, 4, 5, and 8 in terms of whether we had really captured all of
Okay.
those
Yeah, I mean,
guidelines.
if you just look and see if there's anything missing, go ahead and add it. I would
Right,
think that would
yes.
be sufficient.
Will do. Got it.
Thank you.
Make sure, because
Dr. Turner, anything on page 3?
we discussed D before, and there wasn't. And I thought that we were gonna kind of look at D and kind of maybe, but I noticed there wasn't any change in the last one, but I have under discussion notes that we were discussing D because there are 2 topics. One's vendor and one's appoints. So I didn't know if we were gonna split up vendors and appointments process and, because D we kind of looked at for a while, but I noticed there wasn't any different language or wasn't. So I didn't know that if we took out the appointment part and just kind of maybe put it under elections and appointments, if that would work. Because I think our issue is like during the appointment process, Regents shall avoid any communication with involved applicants. And so I didn't know if there was going to be any clarification, and I noticed that refer to council for further clarification wasn't added into D. So I just had, I had notes on it. So I didn't know if we were happy with D or if we wanted to improve D. Or if you think
And why are you
D-
thinking applicants needs to be, a selection process like that needs to be somewhere different? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because one's about vendors and one is the applicants.
But is there anything different between how you treat a vendor or an applicant?
I don't know.
I would suggest that it's appropriate here because it's talking specifically about our conduct as regents, in my mind, not so much the process.
Gotcha.
So that's
Okay.
why I think it's appropriate
Okay.
here. Now, maybe when we get to the sections that talk about the process
Just
for
add that little,
appointing, maybe we need to
little
say
bit-
something
just that
about
one
refer back
statement.
to
okay. That
Roman
would be
numeral
fine.
2D, perhaps. But I'm,
Okay.
and I know you're correct, Dr. Turner, we had some significant discussion around this. I personally am fine with it the way it is for now.
okay.
I mean,
I think we're
That's
good.
fine. I was just noticing that there wasn't a change
Right.
or any split or, that's fine.
yep,
I'm okay with
I
it.
think we talked ourselves through that.
I think
Yes.
Oh, yes, Ms. McDonald, thank you.
Just a comment. Also, keep in mind that an applicant could also be someone in the future applying for the position that you do appoint, which could be the president, CEO. So it's not just applicant to fill a board vacancy.
Got you.
It
Thank
could also
you.
be an applicant for the one position that you do hire for or appoint.
Very good
All right.
point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Ms.
welcome.
McDonald. Yep,
Okay.
makes sense. And that's a very good point, too. We don't want to be having conversations with those folks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Anything else on page 3?
No.
Ms. Hutchinson?
We're good?
Mr. Rivera, you good there? Page 4? Go ahead, Dr. Turner.
On J, I didn't like the word concerned. I think students is a priority.
Remember always.
So I didn't like the word concern. I like the word priority better. I think students' welfare, and I think it's a priority. I don't know how you feel about that. I'm in education, so that's, you know, so I'm coming from maybe a different perspective.
I think concerns is a little more negative. It's
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with that, or focus, or any of those sorts of things.
Yeah. So remember always that the first and greatest priority must be the educational welfare of the students attending the college.
Are
I
you
thought
okay
it
with
was a
that, Mr.
strong
Rivera?
word.
That's fine. Good, thank you. What else, Dr. Turner?
I'm okay.
Thank you. That's a good point. Ms. Hutchinson?
It's good, there's some inconsistency in the way where all of these are half sentences or fragments, and then we get to full sentences, but I haven't really messed with how to fix those.
That's a good point that will drive us nuts eventually.
will.
So, Mr. Rivera,
Okay,
if you,
make them consistent.
yes, please. Whoever the internal,
So start with
editor
verbs.
is.
So either we
looking at
start
'em.
with the subject or we start with the
Right,
verb.
exactly.
And most of them are
Okay.
starting with verbs, so.
Yes,
Kind of change it midstream, but
thank you.
just while we're messing with it.
Yep, now's our chance. Good point. Okay, on page 5, you've added section U and V to, I think, capture many of our discussions. I was okay with those. Other
Yeah,
thoughts?
I am. I liked those.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to Roman numeral 3, conflicts of interest and prohibited benefits. You've rewritten A, which we, after
Yes.
much discussion.
But this is great. I
No, but
like
it's
this.
good.
I'm sorry, may I ask you to please look back at you for a second?
Yes,
I'm sorry,
please.
I had an additional note.
Okay.
Of some further thought,
For you?
for
Yes.
you, right above it,
Roman
section
numeral
2.
Mm-hmm.
This, this addresses what happens when a regent leaves. I've seen some authoritative material out there that addresses when a regent first comes on. It's the reverse revolving door. So when you first come on to the board, should there be anything addressing for the first year that you're on the board, how you should conduct yourself or what you should do in the event that your prior employer or a prior business relationship that you had comes before the board? So let's say your prior employer, you leave them, and you're on the board, and then they come up with,
Or
they
even-
put in a bid. Or-
Current employer. I'm
Current-
trying to think. I mean,
exactly.
we do have, where you need to abstain from discussion and things like that. That's a really good point. And I
See,
guess, now that I think about it, this is a slightly different way you're talking about it, but it's not just for the following year, it's while you're on the board. You'll refrain from employment that has a relationship with. Well, I don't know. Let me
Well-
think about- Or are those the ones you just abstain from? Okay, okay. I think that's the same thing.
Is that? You're thinking?
But, well, to Mr. Rivera's point, if I work for one of our vendors before I become a regent, perhaps I leave that employment 3 months prior to joining the board or being elected. It's one thing if I'm working for that vendor and happen to be a regent. I think the rules are pretty clear about what we file and abstain, and
Okay.
abstaining from different decisions. But I think what we're suggesting is further than that. Let's say 3 months ago, I worked for one of our vendors, and now that company or potential vendor, that company is in front of us on a potential contract. Should I abstain from that discussion even though I'm no longer employed with that company for a period of time?
That's exactly right.
I am fine with that.
With
With,
restraining
with,
that.
with, with saying, and I would say probably a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's simple enough. It's not keeping you from any employment. It's not keeping you from being on the board. It's just setting you aside for any particular decisions. I
Yeah.
like that a lot. I don't think that's in here anywhere.
No, it's
No,
not.
it's not at the front end. It's again, it's
Yeah.
referred to as a reverse revolving door,
Yep.
and it provides for a cooling off period. That's what
Mhm.
you've got. So
Okay.
I can work something up, but I think if you track this and just address the front end of it.
I think that's
It's the
great.
gap that comes in. If you're currently employed, obviously that's gonna get picked up
Sure.
with the conflict of interest rules and all of that. But if not, as Region 8, that's exactly the point, where you're not, within the past year, you were there, but you're no longer there, so there's no obvious need to recuse yourself, but what you're saying is, you should.
We think it's a best ethical practice that you do.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, moving on to Roman numeral 3, conflicts of interest and prohibited benefits. Again, good job on trying to capture our extensive discussion on this. My only comment that I had is in the first paragraph, paragraph A. The third sentence says, Regents shall not accept or agree to accept or solicit any gift, blah, 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 no offense to the lawyers who wrote it, or benefit that the regent knows or should reasonably know is offered with the intent to influence their decisions or actions. I'm wondering if it goes too far for us to include language that says or may appear to influence their decisions or actions. Because this is saying gifts that are offered with the intent to influence, and I'm trying to get at, even, everybody may say, no, it's not given with that intent, but if it appears to, then we shouldn't take that either. If somebody can misconstrue it or perceive that it's potentially influencing us, then we shouldn't take
So
it.
maybe instead of using should reasonably, maybe should, or maybe, or appear to know.
Well, I'm
No, I
fine
think
with
it's
should.
the intent. I think
Right,
the
it's
intent is the
intent.
difficult
Is
word,
that
the one to get, the word to
is
get
that
rid
the
of,
word
or
that you're-
substitute.
Is offered with the intent to influence their decisions or actions, or may appear
Right,
to influence.
There you go.
right.
There we go.
And that's pretty strict. That, that's gonna limit us
That's fine.
quite a bit, which I think
Mhm.
is okay.
But not too much, yeah.
Dr. Turner, do you have anything under section Roman numeral 3?
I thought it was very clear. I liked it. I liked that the penal code was added and so forth.
Mhm.
Makes it a little stronger, and that we just didn't pull this out of the hat.
Yep.
Yes.
Regent Hutchinson, you're good?
I'm good with these. I
Okay.
think this helps a lot.
Okay, Roman numeral 4, board elections and appointments. Thank you for adding the state law references. There is on page 6, there's a typo in the last sentence of that first paragraph. Board elections and appointments shall conducted. Shall
Maybe that
be
should shall be is what I
conducted.
thought, yeah.
Yep, in accordance with college policy and state law.
Apologies to Ms. Sanchez who caught that, and I neglected to put it in. She's listening,
Thank
so
you for giving her credit.
I'm sure she's saying,
She's saying, I told you.
Yep.
So,
yep,
Told you so.
but thank you.
Sure.
That's right.
Regent Hutchinson, do you have anything on page 6?
no, other than that, I picked up the same wording. I don't have any problem with the rest.
Dr. Turner?
Yeah, and again, just going back to that D, if we inserted maybe a G, during the appointment process, regents shall avoid any communication involved with applicants. I don't know if you wanted to put it there or not, but I'm just bringing that up one last
I'm sorry,
time.
which number?
If
Which
we
letter?
if we inserted a G, or I think it should go between F and G.
So she's saying, should we reference back to that new item or the item in our
Yes.
previous
and-
code of ethics that says we shouldn't have any contact with applicants?
I guess I'm okay with this being more, again, the procedure.
Okay,
And that being the,
a process.
or the ethics of how you're dealing with it. This is-
Our responsibility and
Mhm,
our
mhm.
behavior.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm okay with that. We may,
With as is, or do you want me to put it in?
with as is, we may need to be reminded whenever we have applicants that we are not supposed to have any outside contact with the actual applicants. Okay, page 7.
On 2B, again, that should have been deleted because that was a duplicate B and D are
Thank you.
duplicates. That's the only thing that I saw.
Oh, thank you.
Because,
Mhm.
yeah, because
Yeah.
Yes,
Didn't
thank
pick
you.
that up.
one, because chair was
Yep.
corrected and secretary was
Thank
corrected,
you.
but the vice chair, that was still in there.
Thank you. Anything
Yes.
else on page 7?
We're rolling.
We're
We
rolling,
are.
okay. Page 8, committees of the board.
I just had a question.
Please.
So in the copy that we had before I'm looking at D on 6D.
Mm-hmm.
There was a part that was deleted and I wasn't sure why it was deleted, and this was X'd out or crossed out. So on the older version last week's, or when we met last time, on D it said all committees shall constitute less than a quorum of the board and operate under the authority of the Board of Regents, but it's not here. So I didn't know why, because I didn't have any reference on my notes to take that out.
Sure. So if I can address that for you all.
Please.
Because you have this part X, crossed
Right.
out, but you didn't. The other part was just gone. So that's why I was bringing it up.
Right. And those were both intentional for your consideration.
Okay.
I thought, as I was reading it with a fresh pair of eyes, I thought that was a little ambiguous under authority of the board. I wasn't quite sure what that meant. If I had to explain that, I mean, it didn't make sense to me.
What's not
Okay.
being under the authority of
Exactly.
the board, yeah.
Exactly.
yeah.
I mean, you're
Okay.
appointed, and what I didn't want there to be was any confusion that you were de facto acting for the
Mhm.
board, which would not, in other words, there's a whole thing
Gotcha.
in the Open Meetings Act
Mhm.
about committees and whether they're truly independent. You can have a committee that's less than a quorum that doesn't have to comply with the Open Meetings Act.
Yes.
But if it becomes just a cat's paw, as they say, or a rubber stamp for the
Mhm.
board,
Mm.
and that's happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mhm.
happened
That could
where-
be interpreted to mean that.
where
yeah.
boards have
Right.
gone out and appointed, okay, the three of you are the committee, and you can meet without having to post it.
Right.
And so then it's an end run around the Open Meetings Act.
Right.
There are actually
Okay.
situations. So that's what, I wanted to explain that's why I thought, let's just take it out. You don't really need it, and it avoids any concern later that
Mhm.
your own bylaws say that your
Gotcha.
committees are really acting for the board, and you're not.
I like that
Okay.
deletion.
Is that okay?
That's-
Sure.
That's
Yeah,
really
okay.
good.
Makes sense.
All right. Yeah, that's
And
fine.
then
I just didn't know.
This one, I'm not sure now, Regent Turner, may have been that I picked it up more than one time before,
No.
before I finalized it, but because this I struck out, and I wanted you to see the strikeout. That I was uncomfortable with, because that's not really the way you're supposed to do it either.
Okay.
I mean, if you had two board members walk in right now, what I would do is I would recommend, I would ask them to leave.
It's stuff-
But you
yes.
don't all of a sudden turn into a meeting of the board.
Which you can't do,
Yes.
because you can't now go back and post it. and you can't
Exactly.
go-
Right.
Yeah,
You'd
you
have-
can't
Exactly.
suddenly bootstrap that.
So I was trying to, like with the first point, just make it cleaner from a legal standpoint.
Okay.
No. So two board members couldn't come and sit out there just to
Nope.
listen
Nope.
and not say anything. Okay. Didn't know that.
They can watch at home, apparently.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a little trickier. Those are COVID,
Okay.
because that's a very good question. But the Attorney General has interpreted deliberation of the board to mean even when you're passively in the room, not saying anything, sitting on your hands in the back of the room. That's, you're
They've
here,
addressed
you're,
that specifically, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
so it's a little different. I think it's a gray area in the time of COVID where everybody,
Mhm.
is out there, and so it's sort of Scout's honor. I mean, your fellow board members, agreed to appoint this committee,
Right.
to the appointment of this committee, so they should just trust you to do your work and
Mhm.
not do it on their own, so. But,
All right. Thank you. I appreciate
Sure,
that.
those are nuances of the Open Meetings Act that as I was reading this, I said, now's the time to clean it up
Mhm.
and make it clear.
Good.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. I just had a
Good discussion,
But
thank
good eye,
you.
yes, good eye on that.
Anything else on page 8? Okay. Page 9. Finishing up under meetings and then moving into Regent email and official communications. Regent Hutchinson, did you have anything on page 9?
The only thing I was trying to remember about the timing, did we talk about like how long these records are kept?
Yeah.
There's the
and-
time periods, here it is, yes.
But it's still.
So we're not setting them, we're not setting a particular time, we're just saying we can set that time. And if we set that time, then you've got to be within that time. Okay.
So there's no state policy of holding on to records?
It's 4 years, okay? And I didn't know
Okay.
whether you wanted to
Right
lock it in.
now it is.
Right now. And I didn't know whether you wanted to lock in your bylaws, something,
That may
Uh,
change.
but that's why, I'm sorry, again,
But we're gonna review these every year, so.
Right.
So should we put it in there or not?
well, so my suggestion there is if you on an annual basis are reminded during your ethics update what the timing is. I mean, the reason you would want to put 4 years in your bylaws would be so that every one of you has clear guidance on.
Yeah.
So we
how-
know.
So you would know.
Yeah.
So you're not tying it into having to look at your bylaws, but you are requiring the board to review that specific item because it's that important. That's what I gathered. You were pretty interested in knowing how, what you were responsible for maintaining. And I think it's a good point. I mean,
I think we're more likely to follow it if we've been informed of it rather than found it in the bylaws.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the point behind recommending that you specifically review those during your annual ethics update.
Okay.
Okay.
And so you'll be adding that, yes?
Yes,
Yeah.
Ms. McDonald.
Just for a reference, we can always put a reference in there like we have in policy that we do follow the state's record retention guidelines.
I like that.
Because that's what we do follow for the whole college is we follow the state records retention guidelines.
That would be great, just for a
Well-
sense of transparency.
Or
to
a
the
reference, you can
public.
always, it could even be a hyperlink, you can click it and it takes you to that website. And it tells you the records retention for every kind of document you could think of.
That would be great, thank you.
Are you okay with that,
Yeah,
Mr.
we
Rivera?
can do that.
I think
I
that's a
mean,
good idea.
It leads in with pursuant to state law
Yes,
and college policy.
yes,
Yes,
it does.
But we can put in a hyper.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, we've moved on to page 10. Comments here.
No changes.
I didn't see anything. Thank you for the order of business, moving things around to better reflect
Yeah.
what our practice is.
I just had one
Sure.
comment.
Please.
Under the order of business, because of the section that you improved on the citizen, on the public comment section on 11, if, where it says F, public comments, can we put general public comments? Because that's how you refer it to this section, is general public comments.
So go
So-
over that again. Let me
Yeah,
see
because
where
over
you-
here it says during general public comments, during general
Where
public
are you
com-
reading that?
So I'm
Dr. Turner?
looking at section 11.
First
yeah.
full paragraph. of
Yeah, it'd be 11 II 2. During general public comments, it's highlighted, first paragraph, under 11.
Okay.
It says general public comments, so I didn't know if you just wanted to do it just for alignment.
I got you.
Are you talking about?
I'm not
in-
sure.
Right
Change-
here.
So what would get changed? I see where you.
I was just adding the word general because it's used.
To where? Let me see where.
Like, just right here, where it says public comments, just put general
Oh, on the
public.
agenda, back
On
at the agenda.
on the order of business, just
Sure.
so it's aligned with this
Got it.
section.
Now I'm with you.
Does that, I mean, I
Makes
just
sense.
using for consistency.
Makes sense.
Okay.
That was
Is
it.
Yeah, because the
Right.
section distinguishes between general public comments that are at one specified
Yeah,
time.
and then the agenda.
And then the
That's a
agenda
very
item
good
comments.
addition. I like that.
Yep.
I
Is
think
that all
that's
right?
clear.
Yes.
You have a good eye, Dr. Turner.
Yes.
Sorry. I do.
No, please don't apologize.
We need all those eyes.
Yes. Anything else on page 11?
Are people allowed to call in still, or
Mhm.
because you don't have anything about call-ins, or is that needed? Because you have in-person stats, but you don't have anything about call-ins. So I didn't know if that was necessary or not, or is that something that is always going to be an option, or is that just an option during COVID?
All I can say is that at this point is TBD, to be
Okay.
determined, really. I mean, I thought about that. That's actually a very good point. I went over, as I looked at these, I think you've prepared these for the situation where you're no longer under COVID.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, because I know that there was some talk about addressing, patching in remotely
Right.
and all of that. But I don't think it would be prudent or recommended to try to address what you're dealing with now. I think these are all exceptional times, and you already have that the chair can, change the dates of the meeting and time of the meeting and all that. But that's all gonna be governed under state law.
Okay.
So, but I mean, if you want to include something just in general about
I'm okay, because I noticed.
emergencies or disasters, just
That-
generally,
I mean,
we
that's
can
what,
do that.
that's what I was starting to think is not to prescribe the procedure in such a way that it would
No.
lock us in, but I do wonder if it makes sense to have a very sort of general statement that
there's a call-in
this
option,
procedure,
or
well, that
or-
these procedures may change,
as the situation is needed or granted or something.
right, as an emergency situation
event
may
of
warrant, right.
Predictable.
What I can do is, again, I mean, there's language in the Open Meetings Act.
Okay.
about
Okay.
that. So I
Okay.
can do that and include
That-
that in there.
All right, that was the only
But a-
thing.
A disaster,
Mhm.
emergency situation,
Right.
something like that. Okay. But I didn't want to get too specific.
No, I
And I
agree.
certainly didn't want to write a COVID
No, a
rule.
couple people
No,
have asked
not
me.
a
Hurricane
COVID.
rule and a
Right.
Right.
earthquake rule and a.
Yeah, because a couple of people have asked, can I go in person now? I go, yes, you can come in. Well, it doesn't say that on the website. I can't find that where I just have an option to call in. I
Right.
go, no, we have procedures. You can come into the meetings. and
Actually, they
so-
can't yet, right?
They can't come to the meetings yet?
No.
Not yet.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
not
Oh,
quite
you're-
yet.
Not quite
Right.
yet? Okay, I
Not
thought
quite
they
yet.
were able to. Okay.
I think we'll
The-
probably discuss
Yeah.
soon.
Your board
Okay.
is, I mean, the board is still meeting, y'all are still meeting in accordance with the guidance we got early
Okay.
on about that.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you
good.
for clearing that up. I
Sure.
thought we were
Sure.
opening.
Sure.
Close.
We're close.
Page
Almost there.
12.
I just had a comment at the very top about when those general public comments, it says after the recognitions. I think we've actually got them before the recognition.
You do now.
Right,
Mm.
right.
I
That's
still
right.
I think you could consider that to be at the beginning of the meeting. That doesn't bother me necessarily, but it's not after recognitions.
Yeah.
So you just
We
changed
could
it to
probab-
before.
Or take that
Or
out.
just take it
Take it
out, just
out.
take out after the
Mhm.
recognitions. It gives us a little bit of
Alright.
leeway.
Mhm.
That's pretty granular, but
Yeah.
that's the way it is in our policies right
Right.
now. So, so we can look at that. Okay,
Okay,
I'll just take that out.
okay.
And I'm sorry, on the disaster meeting, I'll just fit that in wherever it's appropriate.
That's
I don't-
fine.
It's sort of a
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
catch-all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The additions to minutes of the proceedings seem to capture what we discussed.
Mm-hmm.
Delivery and, yes.
Right. Nothing new under rules of decorum. Any comments there, though? Okay. I don't have anything highlighted for the rest of it. Any other comments, though, on pages 13, 14, 15? Okay, it's not our last chance, so, you know.
No, but I did want to bring up one thing.
Sure, please.
Just because I'm a little OCD. I didn't know if misconduct or social media and the communication and training should go before the elections and appointments. Put the region behavior and expectations grouped together, the meetings grouped together, and then the end. I don't know. I mean, it's just copy and pasting. I mentioned that before. I mean, I'm just kind of weird. But
No, I think that it looks like an add-on. It looks like it was
Yeah,
added and some board just said, let's put it at the end and.
so, yeah, I was just wondering, I think it would be, yeah, so if we,
Make it be Roman
yeah,
number 4.
like 8 has to do with regent expectations. Then social media has to do with behavior as well, expectations. And then you go way back to the end, and then you have regent misconduct, which has to do with regent behavior, and then the training has to do with regent. So I didn't know if we can group them together or not, just so it's
And then
not all
move into
stag.
order of business.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Y'all's bylaws.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Good.
Okay, so walk me through it
Sorry.
again.
So,
Sorry.
no, that's okay.
No,
Let me
no,
see
no.
if I can
Okay.
capture it, because it does make some logical sense. So,
Absolutely.
Roman numeral 9 is fine, leave it right where it is, but then Roman numeral 10 will become regent misconduct
Move that to 4.
for,
The media would move to 5. Communication would move to 6. And then you would have,
okay, wait.
yeah, I just kind of was moving it after 3.
Oh, you were moving it after 3.
Yeah,
Okay,
because
I'm sorry.
that's the end of the, because then it moves to elections and appointments,
Oh,
which
I got
flows
you.
into our
I'm
meetings.
sorry, Dr. Turner, I
Does that
understand.
mean, sorry.
Just get the things that relate to duties, responsibilities, misconduct, that sort of actions of board
Gotcha,
members.
okay,
Group some
Yeah.
towards the front in some kind of priority.
Right,
And
okay.
then in terms of things like public comments.
right.
All
So
that would-
regent misconduct becomes 4,
Commu-
board member training becomes 5.
Yeah, and then you have
And then you-
communications would be 6. And then it would flow into elections, it flows into officers, it flows into duties and meetings and, you know,
Sure.
all that. And then you would just be at the end where it comes to rules of, you know, even that's all part of the meeting. And then it would just it would just flow, because part of it is meetings, the other part is conduct.
Right.
Yes, so
I
if
think
we
you got, why don't you line
I,
those up?
I
to-
will.
Okay, good.
I'll do that.
I got
Sorry.
the gist of it, but I think.
Dr. Turner's going to send you an email.
Yeah.
I'm looking
I
forward
already
to-
did. I sent you
Okay,
that.
look at Dr. Turner's email.
Is that what you, okay. Well, as I said.
Yeah, I had
please-
them. I had them all Roman
Yeah.
numeral, all in
Thank you,
order.
thank you.
Sorry, that's just, you know.
No, very, very
I'm a
good
makes
sense.
sense.
scaffolding sequence person, but you know, I've been teaching too long.
So before
was
we,
it.
Very logical, thank you.
it is very logical,
Yeah.
thank you. And we do have some time to review the draft of the personal disclosure statement that
Yes.
Mr. Rivera has given us. Before we do that, committee members, I wanted to sort of tell you what I'm thinking in terms of next steps. And that is, we talked briefly at the end of last meeting about our policies and lining up our policies with the bylaws. And in looking at our charter, specifically, our charter doesn't mention policies. I'm thinking that we'll be able to, next week, go through another draft, a few more cleanup items, and I believe we will be prepared to present a draft of the bylaws at our August meeting to the entire board.
Okay.
We have a agenda meeting anyway next week, so I will tell the chair that we will be prepared to do that in terms of the new bylaws draft. What I'd like to tell the chair of the board is that we have not at this point drafted any new policies because we want the board's input and approval of the bylaw changes before we ask Ms. McDonald to potentially
Coordinate it,
change some
yeah.
policies that may or may not be in alignment with what the board ultimately does. Are you okay with that, Ms. McDonald?
Yes, because unless the board wants to move forward with it, then there's no sense in going and trying to
No.
Right.
reinvent, because you may have to actually add, delete, or revise in what is in current policy.
Yes.
For example, if you have it spelled out in bylaws, what you're talking about, how you're going to conduct your meetings and public comment, do we really need to have the exact same language in policy, or just policy refers to see the Regent bylaws for how meetings are conducted, and it links to
Yeah.
it. So-
Right.
And then you can take out, that way you don't have to maintain two sites. So
Right.
that would be one of my suggestions.
Oh, yeah.
Agreed. And we did review the Weaver recommendations to policy, just as we were thinking in larger terms about the kinds of issues that we wanted to include in our bylaws. I'm also going to suggest to the chair, if this is your will, that that the board allow this committee to reconvene after the board takes its actions on the bylaws for a few meetings to work on the policy harmonization, if you will, to potentially expand our charter just a little bit. I don't think that will take very long, so that we as the committee can help you with that as much as we can, but be part of that vetting process. Does that sound
That sounds really
reasonable
good.
to you all? Okay.
Really good.
Okay, great, good, thank you. Then we
We're
will
not
do
done
that.
yet.
Not done, yeah, I know. I promise we will be at some point. That said, Mr. Rivera.
Regina, before we get into that, can I bring up
Yes.
one point, please?
Please,
Yes.
yes.
And I give credit to Ms. McDonald through the power of text here. She's raised a very good point, and we've got more than one pair of eagle eyes. So let me direct your attention to currently paragraph 11, the public comment, the participation section.
Okay,
And you'll see that the heading to that talks about citizen, student, faculty, and staff participation. And then it talks about, in the first paragraph, the right of citizens to provide comment. So you don't have to actually be a citizen to be perfectly legal about it. Anybody that comes from a member of the community can make public comment.
Right.
So to avoid any confusion over that, perhaps we can, instead of citizen in the heading, citizen, we can say community,
Yes.
community,
like
student,
that.
faculty, and staff participation.
Mhm.
sure,
And then in the body, where it talks about respects the right of citizens, respects the right of the public,
sure,
Mhm.
good.
that's more
And,
accurate.
yeah, and do you actually have to spell, in a more generalized term, just participation in public comment? Instead
I
of
was thinking
saying
about
if
that.
you're
Why-
faculty or
yeah.
staff or citizen, it's just,
You're talking about in the title.
Everybody,
yeah, just
In the
to
title, yeah.
participate in public comment.
In public comment?
To participate in public comment, or however you want to word it, just leave it very general
Or
instead of trying to
participation and
categorize
right.
bodies of people, that would just be my suggestion, just leave it general.
I think that's good, because there are no separate procedures for student or faculty or staff. We're just talking about
Everybody.
everybody who shows up for public comment, and it can be anybody.
Okay. So don't designate yours, just say participation in public comment or community participation?
Yeah, because in your current policy, it says public comment
Comments.
during board meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean,
That's B215, that's the heading.
yeah, that's the title that you're using there, which
It's a good point.
and then it takes out all of that.
Yeah, and we're clear that the right of the public would mean staff, faculty,
Mhm.
anybody. Okay.
So maybe just entitle it public comment?
Mm-hmm.
That's mine.
Okay.
Before we leave the bylaws too, I wanted to clarify the draft that is presented to the board we're obviously not going to give them every draft that we've done. We're going to give them our final draft, but the final draft will highlight new or changes that we have made to the existing bylaws, correct? So that they can understand what we've either omitted or changed or
We-
moved.
Just what you've been doing now.
So perhaps after your next meeting,
Mm-hmm.
when we have a pretty, when the committee believes, okay, this is what we're going to recommend, we will go back and take the changes your final changes, and make them to the current draft of the bylaws in a red line format. So that what you present to the board, full board, will be that red line that will show the changes you're proposing, and then a clean final copy
Right.
for reference.
Okay.
And that'll be does that make sense?
Yeah, so what would be the procedure? So you're gonna send this out to all the board members prior to the meeting where they can look at the changes, correct? And then they'll just be placed on the agenda for discussion.
Mhm.
Regent
Okay.
Averett, as the chair, will report back to the full board.
With Mr. Rivera's help.
All right, because
And
then-
remember, in our August meeting, it will not be on the agenda for action.
Right.
At least in terms
it's
of,
just for reading one.
yeah, it's review basically and discussion, but we're not asking the board at the August meeting to approve the bylaws yet.
No, because we would need their comments and then we'll come back and convene and,
Potentially,
Yeah.
depending on how that meeting goes.
And you'll be ahead of schedule, because I think the charter, right, was that,
Right.
By
I think we're
September?
close, right?
And the goal is that at the September meeting, they will adopt
Mm-hmm.
the
right,
new changes.
right, but the committee's work, I think, you were given until September.
Mhm.
Is there a reason not to give the opportunity to adopt them in August? If everybody says, great
These are
job,
good.
no comments, 0 changes. But if anybody's got the slightest change, then we say, great, we'll table that, we'll do it
I think the
September.
public has a right to make comments on it, right?
Well, they
But
can,
they'll
as
have
long as
it.
we post it.
I have it.
I'm okay with it, and we can discuss in our agenda prep meeting next week. I would be okay with it on the agenda for potential action, but like you said, if there's extensive conversation, we
Yeah.
could table it
And
a
we
month.
could make that clear.
Miss McDonald.
And remember, you do have the meeting on August 24th
Right.
also,
That's what I
so
was
you
thinking.
could potentially do something at that meeting.
That's true.
'cause you
I
do
mean,
have
those are
that
your budget
August 24th. Yeah.
meetings,
Thank you.
tax rate meetings, but you could also put that in there if that was something you wanted to adopt.
Okay, great. Okay, let's take a look at this personal disclosure statement.
So
Um,
if I may,
please.
Regent Averett, just a little bit of the preface. So there's an extensive personal financial statement. I wanted to save trees in Colorado so they wouldn't have to cut any more
There you go.
trees. Regent Hutchinson,
Say the truth.
it's a lot of pages. Regent Averett has looked at it and studied. Yes, so, and it asks for a lot of detail, okay? You're not required as regents to file this, but based on this, and then on chapter 572 of the government code, you all discussed at the last meeting that perhaps something that was very basic, very limited, that required some disclosures would be helpful. So that, with that directive, what you see that I presented to you for consideration, it's in draft form, and I really do want you to think about this, because again, you are imposing a burden on yourself that you currently do not have. And I know that in spirit, I know that you all are in agreement with the spirit. You want to be transparent. You want to, have this to the extent that it's reasonable. Because let me also say this. In the research that I've done, there is a corresponding concern in what you're required to disclose, and that is because you're a public official, though. Because you're a public official does not mean that you're a complete open book.
Right.
So I'm involved. I wanted to give you all the background through the American Law Institute that I'm a member of. I'm actually in a study group that is looking at government ethics, and one of the subtopics is disclosure. So they're going to come out eventually with a restatement on. I'm directing this to Regent Hutchinson because she understands, but they're going to come out with an authoritative reference that is gold standard best, for best practices. And so I'm in that group that's actually deliberating that now. And there is still such a thing as government ethics. I know that it's kind of difficult.
Oxymoronic,
Yeah, a little bit. But disclosures are a serious matter, because they do, as I try to put in the prefatory language there for you to consider, they do help avoid conflicts of interest, and also, I think, instill confidence in the public. If you're saying you're doing something beyond what's required of us, but we're doing it for this reason, we're gonna go ahead and on an annual basis file this kind of information, but I wanted you to understand that there's a sensitivity there about asking you to do too much. So for example, home addresses or those are the kinds of things that we're careful with. There's certain things where your privacy is respected. So with that as a preface, this is what I have presented to you for now for consideration and for thought. Number one actually comes directly from the statute. This is what's in the government code, so that language is not something I came up with.
So they use occupational income?
They use-
I thought that was an unusual
Yep.
term, but okay.
So occupationally, now,
Well, there might be other sources of income.
there might be, so the-
Trusts, funds,
at-
Right, and I'm wondering what do you
how
want?
far do
Yeah,
you want to go? I
right.
mean, real estate holdings, stocks,
Investments,
bonds.
yeah.
that's not, I don't want.
Yeah, my sense from what I was hearing you all say last time was, we don't want to go that, that's,
Where you're employed, I think that's the transparency part, especially with vendors and relationships and.
that's kind of a
conflict
gen,
of interest, yeah.
all right. Yeah, that's a little more general, a little more common to all of you. So but I wanted you to know, again, I saved a couple of trees. But interest in business entities.
So I'll make the point that,
Stocks, bonds, notes, mutual funds, I'm just going down those, mutual funds, income from interest and dividends, royalties and rents, personal notes, interest in real property, interests in business entities, trust income, blind trusts, assets of business, so it goes on and on and on. And anyway, I'm sorry, Regent Avery, you were gonna,
I may be getting ahead of us, but I would say if we do choose to recommend that we file these, that I think there does need to be corresponding language in our bylaws
yes,
that recognizes that this is a commitment that we do every year, and also some language perhaps in the bylaws that this will be posted on the website or wherever we post any sort of disclosures.
So are we committing to do this disclosure? Or just the language I see about requesting voluntarily?
do you want to make it a requirement, or do you want to,
Oh, yeah, I didn't even notice that.
yeah, I'm sorry.
It's very, there
I
are a lot of pleases and.
I would make it a requirement,
Okay,
but that's just me.
Yeah.
I'm just one of three.
That's kind of what I was expecting.
okay.
And can I clear, we're giving sources of income, not amounts of income?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Exactly.
Yeah, who you work for,
Of occupational income.
self-employed or you work for?
Right.
I will ask though, what do we mean and the category of the amount of the fee? At the very end,
Yeah.
where we start talking about fees. What do you mean there,
I know,
Mr. Lawyer?
Well,
What do they mean?
what do
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
mean? What does the legislature mean? And I read it before, so let me, I had to read it myself a couple of.
I mean, really, the second half of that paragraph is
Ugh.
a little jumbled.
Yeah,
I think we should just keep it very simple.
I do too.
List your sources of occupational income, identified by employer or self-employed by the nature of the occupation, period.
Other organization from which you or a business in which you have a substantial interest receive a fee as a retainer for a
So would you need to include the United Way?
Well, sure, yeah, I mean, they're my employer, but they must be referring to something that,
Like a retainer and you haven't done the work yet.
exactly.
That's pretty.
That's exactly what it is.
But why not just list that? Just,
Yeah.
if you get income, we don't care if you've earned it yet or not.
Okay.
right.
I
Maybe,
can clean that up.
yeah, let's
Like I said,
simplify
I-
that as
I-
much
I
as
put in-
possible.
That's verbatim.
Yep.
I figured I couldn't go wrong with that, but I guess
You can.
I can. So, no
The-
problem.
The outside positions paragraph is very simple, thank you.
Mhm.
That's easy to understand.
And that's actually something I got from guidance from the group that I'm working on, yeah.
Right.
That's,
I'm comfortable with that as long as we make it mandatory, like Regent Hutchinson.
so, and that's,
Suggested.
the board requires
Yes,
that each region file
yep.
this.
So does that need to, so now go back to the bylaws again. So
Yeah, we
have we required that in our bylaws?
We will,
We will.
Okay,
if,
gotcha.
I'm gonna,
if
Gotcha.
we're in
I will
agreement.
develop for your meeting next week.
Somewhere to put that, okay.
A corresponding bylaw.
And I assume we would review it every year with our ethics review and sign it at the same time that we sign the ethics commitment.
And I would just put that in there too.
Right.
And-
This is huge. I mean, we've spent a lot of time, but we really,
How will the
game
board-
changer.
How will the board react?
I won't speculate on anything. We will just, I think it'll be fine.
It'll be up for discussion.
It will
that's
be
for sure.
respectfully received and then, and maybe for discussion. But
Absolutely.
I think you all have done, this is, as Regent Hutchinson said, this is a game, I mean, it's a clear commitment
Mhm.
to ethics, that you're going beyond what you're required to do, and you're being upfront about it. I can't congratulate you enough for the thought and for where you are at this point. Now, to the commitment to ethics, I frankly thought it was gonna be an easier thing than it's turned out to be. I promise I will have something to you shortly, but as I was doing research on that, sure, you could have a simple, look at our bylaws and, we promise to be good and to follow. But there's actually, it's extraordinary, the number of examples that I have found in the last week. So I'm not quite done with it, and I want to make sure I give you something that you can be proud of. And
Let's keep it simple.
I know, but.
There's a balance between,
Yeah.
being-
So it's, we can write something here right now that would be simple and refers to, the fact that you're subscribing to the bylaws and all of that. But give me a little more time and I'll get it to you.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So I'm mindful of the time. It's 5 o'clock, and I know
Okay.
some of us have additional commitments this evening. So to come, we do have a meeting next Thursday. Is everybody okay at 4:30?
4 would still be better for me, but not
I'm
as
fine with
important as this week.
4.
And we can stay with 4:30.
I'm fine with
Okay with
4.
4.
Okay.
Now, the meeting after that, I don't get here close to 4.
Well, we may not need a meeting on the
Maybe
5th.
Okay.
Right.
Your
But,
next, yeah.
Until after.
so Ms. McDonald, Delia, 4 o'clock next Thursday, is that okay? Yes, thank you, Zach. Okay. And at next Thursday's meeting, we will review the latest draft of the bylaws, which we will receive when, Mr. Rivera?
You will have, today Thursday already?
It is
Okay,
Thursday.
I will have it to you, by Monday.
Great. And we
By
will
Monday.
also review the,
Personal disclosure statement and your commitment to ethics
and the
statement.
commitment to ethics, and you'll have all of that to us by
Monday.
Monday.
Mhm.
That's
I may
great.
try to get you
You
the
have nothing
personal,
else to do, huh?
you will hear about that at the next meeting.
And also, before our next meeting, I will talk to Chairwoman Scott just about the timing and where we are, and confirm that that works for her. Ms. McDonald, do you have anything else for us?
No, thank you.
Sure. Mr. Rivera?
I may try to get the personal disclosure statement just because it's hot and fresh on my mind right now, but which I'll talk by tomorrow, just so that you can
Fine.
continue to look at that.
Yeah,
But I'm,
meal it out to us.
yeah, I'm embarrassed by that language, but again, that comes from, that's in the law, so,
It's okay.
but you all are right to want it to be simpler and easier to understand. We
Great.
can do that.
Any other business? If not, we will stand adjourned at 5:03 PM. Thank you all so much for your participation.